We're back together.
Hello.
Hello, hello. We're back and getting magnetic, wrapping up the kind of postpartum, the wildest chapter of our life that we've experienced together as a couple. I think this is the seventh part of the series.
I think this is the eighth.
Oh, eighth part of this series. And a lot of people, I wanted to do this. Sandy recommended I do it, but a lot of people asked too, like, Wade, we'd love to hear your perspective on the behind the scenes as the husband and the father amidst everything. Gosh, we've got life updates. Do you want to kind of recap the last episodes or life update first?
Yeah, really. Let's do a life update first.
'Kay.
So right now we are recording on, what's today? Today is Tuesday.
Tuesday, June 9th.
It's June 9th. Our daughter turns 3 on Friday.
Oh my
Cove.
gosh.
She was born right here in my bedroom where I'm sitting right now. If you're watching the video.
Literally.
She was literally born right here.
In a tub of water. I
was-
actually got to deliver her. Like, it was the
Oh,
most
you
magical.
delivered her?
Meaning I got to catch. I don't know. Is that the right word? Deliver? Like,
I think
you
I delivered her.
birthed her.
I delivered her to you.
Okay, yeah, into my hands. That was amazing.
Anyway, yeah, so, and we're going to share actually about this on the next episode, but we recently made a huge announcement, huge family announcement. I don't think I'm going to share what it is. You got to go listen. If you follow us on Instagram, you know. But we have like the biggest family life change happening in about 6 months.
Yeah.
We're super excited, and we're going to dive into that on the next episode. But before we dove into that, we wanted to wrap this up. So, yeah, I would close that window there. Gosh, what is new? Wade is about to go do a high rocks competition in Sweden.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to Sweden, next week, I think, yeah. And competing for the High Rocks World Championships, which is exciting. All the cousins are coming out. Sandy's holding down the fort like the boss she is. And that makes me think, too, I was going through my phone the other day when I met up to meet with the Founders Only crew, this retreat here my friend puts on, and going on a trail run. I went on the exact same trail run a year earlier with that same crew, and I have a picture in my car of me just bawling, crying, which is like such a rare thing for me because we were just in the thick of it. Luckily, we had some support where I could go for a trail run, yes. But how much can change in a year? Like, now we have a huge life family update that's amazing. We're sitting down doing this podcast, trying to empower people through your story, through our story. I'm going to Europe for the World Championships. Like, you're doing amazing. I'm so proud of you. And like, I've been reflecting on a lot of that lately, how much can change and evolve and grow in a year. But sometimes it takes those lows, those valleys, those dips to really like root down to then go explode and grow.
100%. So if this is your very first ever Getting Magnetic podcast, like this podcast started in 2020, and we were in the height of our business was exploding, so much momentum. We weren't parents yet. Our full focus was like building. And we started this podcast because we were really like growing our influence and our followings, and people were asking us every day, like, how do you build your business? Like, how do you have an online presence? Like, all these things. And so our vision originally with Getting Magnetic was to empower people through entrepreneurship, mindset, finances, personal growth, relationship, partnership, like all the things. And so we've had all sorts of episodes. We've covered so many topics. And over the last few years, I think we have close to 300 episodes. We've had downloads in over 100 countries. Like, we have listeners everywhere. And at first it was a podcast that was like,
I think we have over 1 million downloads, right?
yeah, we had episodes that were like, we were dropping them twice a week for like 2-3 years. And then we had to reel it back for a while. And anyway, there was over a year where we didn't post anything. And then March of this year, so March of 2026, we decided we want to share our postpartum journey with the world. We know it can help people. And it was very like healing for me to do that. So the first episode of this postpartum series, just in case you're on Getting Magnetic and you're scrolling and you're trying to find it, was dropped on March 6th. That was called We're Back, Sandy's Birth and Postpartum Story Part 1. Then 2 days later, we dropped Sandy's Wild Postpartum Part 2, It Gets Real. I think that was the one.
Those were story mode, just kind of going into the story. Like, so everything will make sense, like a little bit in order, but first we went story, then we went to the best resources to help.
Yep. Then part 3 was spiritual awakening, rebuking.
More story.
Yep. Part 4 is where we started transitioning into healing. This is where we interviewed the founder of The Bridge, which was the 3-week trauma healing retreat I went to, Dr. Darren Brooks, love him. Then episode 5 was talking with the founder of Clarisana, which was the clinic where I did my ketamine therapy. That was a thing that literally snapped me out of the depression, helped so much. Then we interviewed the founder, Christy Nault, of Microflow and talked about microdosing and motherhood and how that kind of all helped me with healing. And then the final episode was where we interviewed Angie from Braid Code Setters, which is our neurofeedback, and how that's helped a lot with anxiety, trauma, all that stuff. So this episode today, what are we calling it? Do we even know?
Well, we haven't titled it yet. My point of view on it.
Yeah, but this is going to be Wade sharing on like how to be a supportive partner, spouse, husband for your wife during postpartum. And I think you're going to cover on all 3 postpartums, right? It's not even just this one.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's mainly going to be about this one because this was the most learning and growing and everything. But yeah.
So anyway, this episode can be listened to on its own. You can send it to someone. But yeah, if you're in the thick of postpartum or you're about to be or whatever, like, again, trigger warning. We went through a lot of stuff in our postpartum, and some people might not be ready to listen to it, but we're sharing all this because, like, these are resources we wish we had had. They probably could have, like, helped save us from a lot of nightmaric months that we had one after the other. But anyway, why don't you kick it off?
Pass the mic to me. We got our new Rode mics, too. Shout out Rode. Which is awesome. But anyways, I think to set the tone of this episode, I think as boys, we grow up like being exposed to like what being a man is. And it's typically, you see it's, in the movies, wherever, it's this big and strong man, and there's this level of physicality, and there's this toughness, and there's kind of maybe a little lack of emotion, and tough guys don't cry, and men don't cry, and whatever, and all the things. And there's this framework around that. And we grow up like thinking that and wanting that. And honestly, I grew up blessed enough to be able to kind of like pursue a lot of that, right? I played football most of my life through college, have always been into physical stuff. I've done an Ironman. I'm going to the High Rocks World Championships. I've always pushed my body physically, and I've built that kind of like outside looking in masculine figure, right? But what I've realized in all 3 of our postpartums, but the most through this one, is that like true strength as a man isn't about the weight we can carry in the gym or on the field, right? That is like a result of our inner and outward strength. But true strength is really about like how much responsibility we can carry and how much load we can shoulder, like when life gets really hard. And especially around our loved ones and our family, but also just within ourselves internally. Because if you guys have listened to the prior episodes, and especially the first 1, 2, 3, where it's us sharing a story, like this is by far the hardest season we've had together as a couple. I'll probably say it's probably my hardest season individually, and I wasn't even the one going through the mental health crisis, the struggles, the postpartum, everything that Sandy went through. I was more just like trying to handle and deal with it, and it was still the hardest chapter probably of my life, which I don't want to necessarily say is privilege or not. It was very challenging. And just to like, if you haven't heard it, to recap, I mean, we had our 3rd child, Crew. He's over 1 now. He's getting close to walking. He's so cute. He's so happy. He's so healthy. He's our little healer man, our just amazing child. But and gosh, his sisters love him so much. It's so cute to see them just growing up together. And what a blessing it is a year later to be like, wow, how much has changed. But we had him. It was a unplanned but not emergent C-section through Sandy's just intuition, like something's off, got a C-section. That's its own level of trauma. High level recap. A week or so into that, repressed memories start coming out, Sandy, because trauma can bring other trauma out. And a lot of times our body, spirit, God, your faith wants to like, okay, there's stuff that we need to remove and unearth. Like, this is an opportunity to do that. Here we go. Sandy's a black and white person. For her, and in this moment, it was like, all right, it's all coming at once. You're going to be healing from a C-section, which is its own beast. You're going to have a newborn. You're going to have all the postpartum hormones, and all of a sudden, we're going to we're going to unearth a lot of trauma that you had from childhood that we're going to need to work through.
Well, a couple things I want to add there, too. The C-section didn't come till 2 days later. So I went through a near vaginal birth. Like, I could feel his head if I put my finger a little bit into my vagina. And doctors had their hands up to their wrists in my vagina trying to take them out. So I had a ton of like blunt force trauma to my vagina, which I think is part of what triggered the repressed memories of sexual abuse because subconsciously it reminded me of times I was violated in my life. But I had to go through that like severely traumatic birth, recover from a vaginal birth, bleeding profusely from my vagina for like 6-8 weeks. And then the pain of the C-section. But I think the drugs from the C-section is what started the psychosis. Like my body, my family history, like we don't do well with pain meds or anything like that. And I started having like hallucinations and just so much fear and nightmares. And I think it was triggered by the drugs of the C-section, truly.
Yeah.
So that
there were so many triggers. I mean, the physical things of going through a almost vaginal birth into a C-section. There's so many physical triggers, but then there's the issues live in our tissues and memories live in our cells. And even if they're repressed memories, if Sandy didn't consciously remember through this happening, and I think everything happens for a reason is my belief system, and like kind of some level of divinity there of like, all right, it's time to address and handle all these things, because honestly, now it's hindsight's 2020, but I've learned a lot about trauma, and I've read and researched and listened to podcasts and a lot of different things, and come to my own understanding of like when trauma just lives inside of us, especially repressed or subconscious, it's this weight we carry, and it affects actually a lot in our life until we go bring it up, unearth it, face it head on, which is super challenging, and work through it to the other side, which doesn't mean it's necessarily gone. It just means we're able to evolve through it and pass it and grow through it. And like, I'm so proud of you for doing this series and everything. The ability to like, I just went through that. I bet I'm not the only one. We're all unique, but like who has dealt with certain things like this. Like, can we help people through this? So anyways,
I remember one of the doctors, the psychiatrist, telling us 2% of women go through postpartum psychosis.
Yeah.
And those are those horrific stories sometimes that you hear about, like the mom taking her life or killing her baby. And I never wanted to do anything like that, but I was spiraling, and those extreme cases, it's horrible, and it's not really talked about except for like you see it on the news and how can a mom do that and blah, blah, blah. I understand, like now having gone through what I went through and like months on end of very little sleep, like I understand how someone doesn't have the resources and the support, how it could end up in a horrific situation like that. And so I think our whole mission is obviously like it's healing for me, but like raising awareness about how serious postpartum, like people prepare for birth, and it's like, okay, the birth is going to be a matter of hours, maybe a day or two. The birth is not what you need to worry about or prepare for. What you need to prepare for as an individual, as a husband, a wife, a couple, like is the postpartum. Like what is your postpartum plan? And so that's what our mission is.
Yeah. And so to finish the recap, but basically a weekend, these repressed memories, sexual abuse from childhood come out. Sandy's standing over the sink, wakes up in the night, I think, and is just like, I'm about to tell you something I've never told anyone. I don't even know what it is yet. And just like almost like stream of consciousness, like, I was like molested at a church camp as a kid at 7, right? Was it
12?
12.
How can you
sorry.
not remember that?
I don't know. There's something about 7, like it being this frame. Anyways, at 12. And from there, every single night until you went
weeks
to the bridge. No, months. Weeks, months. Sandy could sleep. One would be like super anxious and all sorts of things, understandably, all the hormones, all the postpartum, recovering from a C-section, repressed memories coming up, and almost like regressing to like that 12-year-old self. And we would get to bed, not easy, and about an hour and a half into sleep every night, 2 max, Sandy would wake up with the repressed memories flooding in, trauma, fear.
And I'd relive it.
And be reliving it and be in almost like, it was like, this almost like, this isn't, I know this is my wife, but like, this isn't her. Like, this is the 12-year-old her that's so scared.
That never processed it, that never told a soul.
Yeah, that never processed, that even forgot about it. Our brain has all these protection mechanisms, just like storing it like, hey, that's not for us to deal with right now. Like, let's just store that away. And I do think we're meant to resurface and address it. And it just so happened that this was the time to do it amidst everything going on.
With a newborn, which makes me so sad.
Then every night, and then it was not back to sleep. So let's say from 10 to midnight or 11:30, we'd get some sleep. Then it was up, and Sandy is just hysterical, almost like remembering it,
manic,
sharing. Yeah. And it started out and it just kept catapulting because every night we'd get an hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep, not get back to sleep. And Sandy's dealing with all of this emotionally, physically, internally, everything. And yeah, really like regressing to like the 12-year-old version of her that never got to deal with it. And it just got so hard for, of course, Sandy, but for everyone, for all of us, right? And then honestly, sleep is so necessary for humans. Stacking enough days of getting an hour and a half of sleep a night, it just makes you start to literally, your brain doesn't work. You literally start to go crazy. And that's where postpartum psychosis and different stuff come into play, because then as the days stack, Sandy's like getting more and more manic, like not herself, right? And I never, same, was scared of anything, but like also you're like, gosh, the risks are there too. So we're trying to handle it home. Luckily, we have amazing community, great resources. Ezra, shout out Ezzy. We had an amazing nanny at the time. She's now in college, but they helped us just so much. My mom would come out, like your dad came out, like so. As much resources probably as you can have, and but that was not enough. But for me, I want to go into that, like learning really what true strength is as a man, because this chapter really, like, I had to hold a mirror up to myself and like, who am I? What is my character? Like, how do I show up in these times? Because I know how to show up. I know how to work hard. I know how to work hard physically. I know how to work hard in career. I know even how to work hard and pursue and build a marriage and build a family and build a life. But like, this was the first time I've had to deal with this, and it's so different. You can't just use drive and brute force and whatever. This was like, there's this emotional component, there's this spiritual component, there's a physical component of trying to hold everything together with very little sleep and different things. But that is the biggest thing, is like, these moments in life offer you a mirror and they hold up, and you just got to stare at yourself like, who am I here? Like, how do I show up here? And I think that's like the true character, because it's when everything's going well, it's easy to be, you know, awesome and strong and whatever. When like shit hits the fan, and especially with the person you love the most, and like I'm sure it's harder to go through it personally, but like it's also hard because like men want to help, right? And this wasn't like a help. This was like a hold everything together. I actually did take a few notes, but like really, the message being true strength isn't physical. It's showing up every day when you're exhausted, when you're scared, when you're tired, when you're uncertain, when you're carrying like more than you can think or have ever held or can handle, but like continuing just to show up. And it's also amidst all that, like I realized I needed to remain steady and be the rock and be grounded. I'm like, I can't lose it. Like Sandy, understandably, is losing it and needs so much support and help. And we have 3 kids, and we have a newborn, and we have a life, and honestly an expensive life. Like I got to figure out how to hold up and all these things, and I got to take care of myself too. And like being able to remain steady and grounded in that is like the hardest challenge of my life, but like where I've probably grown the most. And to that too, being grounded and being a rock, I've reflected a lot in this. Like, I think I was innately blessed. I think men are generally, like, our role is more like the rock and grounded of our family. And I always say Sandy's like the heartbeat of our family, and the passion and the emotion. And those are really good masculine, feminine balances. But the important nuance, like being the rock too, doesn't mean like non-emotional. When we hear be strong, it sometimes men, we just suppress everything. But really in this season, like I had to hold it down, but I was also scared. I also cried a good amount. I also felt overwhelmed. I also had moments where I had no idea what to do. I had a lot of moments where I had to ask for help, which I've like have such a hard time doing, and I've barely ever done in my life, honestly. But it's cool. I think people, human nature, like we want to help people. Like the amount of our community that like showed up for us, and I think that's a testament to you and to us, not bragging, but like what we put out and try to give. Like our community's like, oh my gosh, the Critides need us. We had we had friends, we had business partners coming over and cooking and dropping off meals and just taking care of crew and all sorts of things and Venmoing us. Like, I remember one day my volume on is like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And I'm like, hey, we make honestly a pretty good living and our community's rallying. This was a very expensive time of life, obviously. And I'm like, people are just sending us money for food and meals and childcare and financial support for medical bills and whatever it is. So being a rock doesn't mean emotionless, but I also realized I couldn't live there. I had to let myself feel the things, but like I had to come back to steady and grounded. And honestly too, what I realized, like I'd probably get an hour and a half, 2 hours a night with Sandy, and because I'd have to just kind of listen and share and be there for her, which was the hardest part for me. I'm like, okay, I can tough it out during the day. I can handle the kids. I can try to make sure the bills are paid. I know how to do that. I didn't know how to show up for someone and hold space going through this level of trauma. This is brand new to me. I told Sandy, like, at certain moments, I'm like a newborn to this. Like, I haven't ever been through this. I don't know what to do. There's no handbook on how to deal with this, especially when you're just exhausted. And, like, I would start, like, nodding off sometimes. She'd be like, I can't believe you're falling asleep on me. I'm like, it was just, like, physically, like, shutting down a little bit.
I think too with that, it's like for any postpartum mom, obviously our situation is unique and not everyone has like repressed memories or like stuff there. I have heard a lot of accounts of sexual abuse and like remembering that type of stuff come out with birth. Like, you know, it's all connected to your root chakra, your sacral chakra, like all that stuff comes alive when you have a baby, right? But I think for me, my resentment grew because I just went through all this and you already couldn't relate with that. And then I'm trying to share with you about multiple instances that I remembered and how like traumatizing they were for me. And I felt like you didn't care. But I think you just don't naturally know how to hold space for things that make you uncomfortable, that are like really heavy and like kind of awkward to hear. It's like, it's awkward to hear about your wife having creepy sexual things happen to them when they're younger. Like, and I would tell you these things in detail and you would just like stare at me. And I think you got better as time went on and we got more and more therapy of how to hold space. But whether it's that instance or your wife just crying to you about like how tired they are of being up in the night breastfeeding, or all the sacrifices and the healing and the mental load that comes on with a new mom, like I think the resentment piece for me was so real. Like, it's like I love you more than anything, and in the same breath I also was so like mad at you. Like I almost felt like you were like part of like this happened to me because of you. Like I almost had that like victim mindset. But something I thought you were so good at, and I'd love to hear you talk about this, is like you always took very seriously like your job is to take care of me and my job is to take care of the baby. Not that you can't take care of the baby, but like you would make sure that I had my supplements, that I was eating nourishing meals, that I was hydrated. Like I was up in this room, we're in our bedroom recording. I was in this room for weeks healing, and you would make sure that I was taken care of, and you kept the space safe for me. And there was a few select people we'd let come up here to like spend time with me or visit, but you were so good at like protecting me and protecting my space and making sure I was nourished. And I think 2 or 3 weeks in, it got to a point where you're like, you need to ground. Like, I'm taking you downstairs. And you would take me downstairs out to the front yard, which was so hard for me to even walk because I was in so much physical pain from the surgery. And you would set up a chair for me outside and you'd put my feet in the grass and you'd be like, you're sitting here in the sunshine. I'm going to get you some water. And you would like, you were always taking care of me. And I feel like I don't see enough of that. Like, I saw someone recently that had a baby that was 5 days old, and her husband was at work and she was like loading the newborn and her older kid in the car. And everyone's situation is different, but I just couldn't help but think like that would have never happened in our home. Like, there is no way 5 days postpartum my husband would be gone. Like, you were fully dedicated. I don't think you barely worked for 3 months. You were barely hanging on by a thread. And I just think you did such a good job of taking care of me, and like so much of my physical part was like taking care of myself, and then what was left over was like for breastfeeding or whatnot. We quickly ended up transitioning to bottles, and you know, obviously then you took a ton of that, waking up in the night, bottles, all that, and you were really owning me and the baby and the kids and the business, and I was like handicapped.
I think a few things there. One, I think it's, you know, being through 3 postpartums and some more quote unquote postpartum's a spectrum, right? Like on the not normal side, but like not this crazy. There's this natural resentment, right? I think if you've been postpartum and you somehow didn't resent your husband or your wife at times, like that's like some unicorn stuff. I think that is just like a natural progression. I think looking back, we have a different lens and can see it in through, hindsight being 2020. So I think that's normal and natural, but I also think it's, it shines opportunities to grow. And also like it was a point too, honestly, like I knew too, like I have to listen and be there. And the hardest part for me is the empathy side. And like, cause I can listen and I can hear it. I don't necessarily know how to show up without fixing and solving it. I learned quickly, like we're not solving in this whole chapter and era. Like I can help her. Hey, you have some more water, this and that. But it was just listening. But like, what do you say? How do you show up? How do you energetically, especially when you're like the stressors of everything else trying to hold it up was insane. But I think too, yeah, what I've realized, like a husband's role, to echo what Sandy said, is to support mom, because mom really just needs baby. Like you can snuggle the baby, and especially once it gets the bottles. Like, dads, you're up in the night feeding the bottles. Like don't care if you have work. Like you just got to gut it out in that season. We're built for that. Like we honestly are. And moms are built for postpartum too. But like they're going through so much more than we are physiologically. Like we gotta, you're changing the diapers. Like once bottles are going, or if they get in the mix, like you're doing that. Like
and
mom,
washing the pump parts and
like, the little things,
all
like
the little things, but that can take hours a day.
Mom is just honestly like surviving and like trying to get back to any sniff baseline in any way, shape, or form. So like our role is to take care of mom and the house, and mom's role is just baby. And then I'm taking care, we're taking care of baby where we can too. Of course, getting some quality time in. What I realized, dads, the bond really like starts to flourish like when they're like toddlers and they're walking around there, whatever. It's just a thing. Like the first year of life, like they're just, mom is it. And we play with them and do all the things, but like we got to really like be nurturers there too. And that's where the masculine and feminine balance come in. We aren't nurturers, but like, how do we step into that? How do we do the best we can there? I'm not empathetic. I may never be empathetic, but like, how can I like grow a little and like understand a little more and learn more? And I think too, back to like the resentment thing, like I think expectations are resentments waiting to happen, right? If Sandy's expecting me or I'm expecting her to like act or do or receive or do something in a certain way and it doesn't hit the mark, like there's resentment there. Like for me, like it was like almost like a capability thing. Like, babe, I can sit here and listen and this is horrible and whatever, but like holding space is something I'm going to need to like grow into and learn like for this stuff, because this is new to me and like that's not my natural inclination. Like I got to hold it down. I got to be the rock. I got to be grounded. I got to take care of everything else outside on 2 hours of sleep. And I would try to do a good job. I would get a little more like in the day if I could catch a nap, or sometimes Sandy would be up journaling and like going wild, like after the trauma dump, and like I would go back to bed for a little bit.
Something I want to share too is I think it's so important postpartum for the mom to have like a female tribe. Like I had like a few select women that were like safe feminine energy for me. I lost my mom when I was 23, so I don't have her. So every postpartum, I like re-grieve my mom and how much I wish I could have her. But I have Wade's mom, my mother in love. I've known her my entire life. Our moms are best friends, and so she was really huge for me. And Tara, I'm going to call her my sister-in-law, but your brother's girlfriend, was super important to me. Geneva, my midwife, my dear friend Ashley, my dear friend Leslie, my sister Haley Duncan. Like there was a few people that really like I could just call literally anytime. I'd call them at 2 a.m. and be like, I need to talk right now. And they're like, I'm sitting up, let's go. What do we need to process? And because like I couldn't just take the blank stares. And so I was like, listen, you sleep and I need to talk. There's
this definite thing around the village and women needing women. Yes. You realize that so much, even like while birthing. Like any guy who's been through a birth, like you're just kind of like there, and like your energy like can be protective and stuff. And there's like,
remember when you told me like breathe?
Yeah, like any guy who's ever been
breathe.
Like,
I'm like,
I'm just copying what the midwife is saying. She's like, breathe, Sandy. I'm like, yeah, breathe, Sandy. She's like, ah. Like there's just this energetic thing around like women want to feel connected to women because they've been through that, and because there's that nurturing energy. And that's what leads to another point, like in masculine leadership, like it isn't control, or we naturally want to fix things. I realized in this season, like there were so many moments, pretty much the whole season, like I couldn't fix it, I couldn't solve it, like but I could walk through it with her. So sometimes leadership, especially like masculine leadership, isn't just I can protect my family, or I can provide, or I can stay grounded. It is that too. But it's like, can we be present? Can we listen? Can we, yes, protect, of course. Can we advocate? That was one of my biggest like leadership, masculine leadership, like, okay, she needs women. She's literally telling me this. Sometimes like I would just trigger her like walking into the room. Like just like I'm like, okay, I'll just go back to the kids. Like,
well,
okay.
It would be simple things. You're like, I'm going to go on a run. And then I'd get mad. I'm like, you get to go on a run. Like, I can't do that. Like, my body is like so like ruined. Like, my body got mutilated. And then I'd get so mad at you that you're just like trying to do anything to like get 1 hour for yourself. And then I would be like, I can't even do that.
Yeah,
like, you disgust me. And you're like, can I do anything?
That's a side note. I got the playbook as the husband. Like, unfortunately, you can't write the playbook. You need to take care of you too. Like, everyone else does come first, especially in this season. But like, I needed those little moments of sanity of like a quick move. I know moving my body and exercising like gets me to the best version of me. And I'm like, I'm sleep deprived, but like I know doing this is I'm going to be able to pour out more. And so like there was that ROI there, and we had the nanny and my mom and something in place where I'm not like abandoning by any means. But that's another thing in leadership is like the advocating, like, all right, she needs women. All right, my mom's here. Like, or let's fly her in, or like, let's double up on the nanny's hours to whatever she's comfortable doing. Or let's have a nurse come over, and hiring nurses and midwives and different people. And we even had friends like, hey, I want to just give my time to Sandy. And like, there was like a women just, yeah, the safe space women and doulas and midwives like rolling through, and friends, close friends, or my mom and or sister-in-law, yeah. So the advocating too, and like knowing where I could show up and what I could do is important too, but also the endurance, like the resilience and enduring it, because I took also like the physical beating, but like an emotional beating too. I just have a wife that like is resenting me. I can't do almost anything right. She at one point, because of the trauma from men, is like scared of me as her husband just because I'm a male.
So his mom would sleep in bed with
Yeah,
me.
like there'd be nights where she's like, you can't sleep with me. I'm just scared of you. Of course, I didn't do anything other than just being a man, and I'd be like, and that's hard too. And so like enduring and the resilience, but also loving someone through mental health is different. And that was like a huge lesson too. Like, if someone gets physically hurt, you're like, oh my gosh, everyone's there for them. Everyone understands that. When someone's struggling mentally or emotionally, it's so much less tangible and it's so much harder. But it really shows, your love shines through. When I heard people would DM or text me or be like, you're doing a great job, from the little they would see or know about what's going on in their life. Like, my husband would never have done that, or most husbands would leave. I would get like a little mad. Like, it's really hard to get me mad. I'm like, what? Like, this is our greatest responsibility ever when times get hard. That is like when we need to show up the most. Like, it's easy to have fun with the kids and run the show and whatever, and everything's good. Like today, for example, this day in our life, when it's that hard, like that's where we're most needed. And so when loving someone through mental health is like a whole different ballgame, because I also knew like Sandy was resenting me. I knew like I'm a trigger because of all these things, and we need to work through these, and I need to play my role and play my part. And I know she loves me deep down, but she's going through a lot, and she's also not sleeping. So you're just not even in your right mind either. Doesn't not validate how she's feeling and different stuff. But like, I also got to, hey, she's also like postpartum psychosis, hypermanic, all the things like, but loving through that is like, that tests your foundation, right? And your love. And so, because you do start questioning like, okay, what's real? Like what's happening? Like, is this temporary? How long will this last? What do I respond or react to versus what do I just let be? What do I not respond to? Like, there's so much going through your head. It's incredibly confusing but like coming back to like knowing your person and loving them amidst anything. Is that true? Like whatever the vows are, through sickness and in health, it like really puts it to the test. And I think a real man does not run away when it gets hard. Like you just face it, you run into it. I almost think, and that was all we could do.
You did a really good job of
all
that.
we could do it, even though like I was so far from perfect. And I think my biggest lesson is like, I'm innately not super empathetic. Sometimes saying, like, oh my gosh, this happened to someone. I'm like, I can't let that in. I know who I am. I can't let that affect me and my whole day and my week and my whatever. But how do I still show up for that? Like, so very, very, very imperfect. And I think too, like in these moments, like there's so many roles to play. It was Sandy's caretaker to an extent, while Sandy's mainly sometimes her advocate, where I'm like, she doesn't want me to take care of her. She wants